everyone. Thanks for joining us back for another episode of Taking Back Birth through Children's Health Defense Canada. I'm really excited to be here with Crystal, the holistic nurse doula. And we were just talking about her bio, which is quite extensive. So Crystal is a nurse and birth postpartum doula in Ontario. I think we're in the GTA area. Crystal specializes in holistic health, psychology, nutrition, weight loss, alternative medicine, and pregnancy and birth planning. And this is what kind of got our conversation started. I was like, you kind of do it all, don't you, Crystal?
Cristelle, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, I guess when you've been in the system for a while, especially like as a nurse, you start to see a lot of the cracks. And I'm just someone who's really studious. So when I noticed all these cracks, I was like, well, how do we fix them? Right? Because there's got to be a way to fix them besides just letting people suffer in hospital beds.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been in RPN for?
I've been in RPN since 2012.
Okay. So you would have noticed things pretty early on then. When would you say that you started noticing these cracks? Adley is joining me. I was saying that I haven't figured out nap schedule. So this is a pretty raw Taking Back Birth episodes lately. So we'll get it sorted, but yes.
Which is actually perfect, right? Because
yes.
you have the doula on the camera with you. So there's no worries.
Yeah. So when did you start noticing like the cracks? Because I'm excited to have a fellow nurse on here as well. I was a little bit slower, I think, to wake up, but it sounds like you were probably like right on the ball noticing these things.
I started noticing probably in college when I was at Humber College, and just like how it was so systemic, like the training of the nurses, it was almost like military training. And it was kind of taking out the personal touch. And then I was like, whatever, just like go get a certificate, like make something of yourself. Cause I didn't have a title to myself or anything back then. So I was really eager to become someone in society, right? And then once I got to the hospital, like it just became as clear as day, like what the cracks were, just like the understaffing, the over patient flow, right? Just like not enough hospital beds, and then the lack of nurse safety. I was even on the psychology ward, behavioral neurology ward. So I would receive daily beatings from my psych patients, and they were just like, at the end of the day, they were like, "Oh, that's okay. Just fill out a form that you just got your beating and just go home." And I'd go home black and blue and be like, okay, well, that's the end of my shift. And working there, I became very like grumpy. Like I wasn't a happy person. And I eventually realized that I wasn't a happy person because there's so many cracks and I was getting beaten every day.
Yeah, it's amazing how it does that to you, like the unhappiness, right? Like especially when you start realizing that it's systemic and these cracks and it was designed this way, I feel it really starts to just break down your soul, your spirit, and you bring that home. Yes. Yeah, especially when you realize that you were literally unsupported and no one, cares.
Yeah.
And so with that, so you noticed there was all these cracks. Were you like an RPN first? And then so when did all these other things come in? Like when did you have time to fit all this training in?
So yeah, like on top of that, I also noticed that like nurses eat their young because they're so burnt out and understaffed. There were just so many bullies on the floor, and I'm sure you've encountered them too. And there's all these little cliques, and there was even like a little like nursing like Russian mafia at one of the places I worked, and they were like legit like stealing things off the floor, and like we couldn't like rat them out. Like it was so intense. And so yeah, I was like, you know what, like around that time, after a couple years being having hospital experience, maybe like 2 years, I quickly realized I was like, I don't want to work here for the next 40 years. Like, how is this sustainable? My back is aching because we don't have enough manpower to lift and turn patients, and I'm black and blue every day, and I'm not happy. how are we supposed to be here for 40 years, right? Like I was just entering my career that time at the age of 21. So yeah, I started shifting gears and I started looking around, and I got into occupational health nursing from there. And that was a little better because you're more of like an office nurse. It's a little more cushy than like being thrown into the hospital like full force. And you're more of like a nurse for like the workers in the workplace. But then again, like there is a high level of like indoctrination and like big corporate daddies like looming over you, and then you're kind of like the middleman for like, you're stuck in like the middle for like employees and the contractors, right? So then the contractors want you to do something, and then the employees are like, hey, like help, like we're being bullied, like it's unfair pay, like we're paid basically like slaves, like help us. And you're like in the middle, and you're like, you can't really like move too much, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So then that was like that is not desirable. um and then it was hard because like I genuinely have a good heart, and I became a nurse because I want to help people, I want to heal people, I want them to get better. So yeah, it was just like all these different career switches, and just the cracks kept growing, or they just weren't going away. And then and then the mandates all came down and stuff. And so then I just took it into my own hands to just go into the private and just start my own business where like Billy Harrigan says, where I could be a useful human.
Yes. Definitely no more useful humans these days. Useful humans with common sense would be great. Would be
Exactly.
great. Yes. So that's what you've been doing. So you moved into the private sector. You started up your own business, and
Yeah.
as the holistic nurse doula.
Yeah. So in 2020, I got certified as a doula. I opened up my own little supplement shop with the help of Dr. Mark Taliani. And then I just shifted more into private, like nursing consultations, right? And I even still do private home care for nursing. That is still needed. People still need that. And um, because of the divide in our community, people will want this kind of nurse and people will want that kind of nurse, right? So
Yes.
I'm this kind of nurse.
Yeah. With your own niche. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that look like with at home consults and nurse consults? So what are you doing these days?
Yeah, so I kind of all tie it together. Like that's why I've kept the title the holistic nurse doula, because in consultations, it'll come up that someone wants to get pregnant, but they need a liver cleanse, right? And so with my supplements, I'm able to prescribe like a 3-month liver cleanse for them in order to increase their fertility. And then down the road, they get pregnant, and then they just hire me as their doula. And I help them have like a successful and safe home birth or hospital birth, or however they want that to look.
Mm-hmm. So it's pretty amazing to be able to be on this journey with the women, the parents or the couple as together to help them, through their nutrition to become healthier, to create this, opportunity to become pregnant and then get invited into that space too. I think that's pretty amazing to be on that whole journey with them. You would really get to know your clients very well.
And then on top of that, because I have because I'm just very versed in psychology, I'm able to do like what I do in my doula appointments. I actually set up several doula appointments, and I do psychological work with the mother to prepare them for birthing. Like I actually set up sessions where I'm removing their fear and their blockages, because it makes it easier for me and it makes it easier for them. You know what I mean? Because then when we're there in that time and in that space where it's time to give birth, they're no longer in a place of fear. There's no withholds. And I find that labor actually moves faster.
Well, what would be some of the things that you would work on with mothers, like through your psychology training? What do you find comes up the most that you have to help them work through?
So I actually took I took a hypnobirthing course, and have you heard of hypnobirthing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have you ever done it?
No. So I was like, maybe you can explain what that is, how it works, and what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just found that so fascinating because with hypnobirthing, we're able to do like gentle meditations that go like beyond the surface of your mind and goes into your subconscious, and it literally like rewires your brain through hypnobirthing or meditation type of like hypnosis or meditation type of approach.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really powerful. And when you do that, you're able to just like relax more into your body and feel the areas where you're holding fear or maybe subconscious things are able to come to the surface, and we're able to talk about that and like just release them.
Mm-hmm. What would be the most things that women fear going into birth that you're helping with the hypnobirthing or through, breaking down barriers or whatever that might be? What are the things that women seem to fear most going into birth?
I have to say it's the pain. Like honestly, there seems to be like a huge stigma, if is that the right word? Like
I
around
think so.
pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this whole thing like around pain. And like, in the world of hypnobirthing, there actually has been a lot of successions with orgasmic births. And I'm not saying work with me, I'll give you an orgasmic birth, right? Like you have to gauge where you're at and how doable that is for you. Like that's not guaranteed for everybody. But it's all about rewiring the brain in a sense that like birth is not pain. Like birth is not about the physical pain. Like birth is like a rite of initiation for women. Like it's something to embrace. It's something to be excited for. It's something to understand that with every surge, which is what we call contractions, it's bringing your baby closer to you. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
baby is working with you. This is a journey with you and baby and like God and your husband, of course, is who's your partner. Very much they're involved in this too. Yeah, you just kind of like with the hypnobirthing, I just like pull away at like all the false senses and the false realities, because like there's been so much indoctrination about birth, like especially if you watch any Hollywood movies, right? Like the woman's always holding onto her chair just like like screaming her head off, and you're like, oh God, that's gonna be my birth. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just like you have to break all of that down and bring it back down to basics and be like, women have been birthing since the start of time. It's not a medical event. It's a rite of passage. It's natural. It's beautiful, right?
Absolutely. And it's so fascinating, when you think of the propaganda and the indoctrination, from right down to prenatal classes put on by health units in the hospitals and,
Yeah.
the doctors and nurses, the messaging that they give us. But then you have the deal with all of Hollywood and that imaging. And that's what I think people hold on to the most, just because it sits in your psyche. Like it just sits back
Yeah.
in your subconscious, and that's what you think of. And it could be, comedy, where they're, yelling at their partner or husband or whatever it is, and the things that they're screaming, but they're screaming and they're in pain and they're, like physically like trying to break things. And
Yeah.
that classic image of being rushed down the hospital like hallway, in a wheelchair, like it's it
Like
is.
honestly, like Kristen, was your birth anything like that?
Yeah, no, not even the ones that were in the hospital. Like, if you are being honest, like even the ones before I even knew all this, like they were very calm. There was no screaming or rushing or, like panic. Yes, they were very medicalized with, I did the inductions and epidurals and everything before I knew any different, but yeah, they still were not like that. So it's just this crazy thing. I don't know if they think like the drama, or like where does that even come from, that is like the image of birth.
Honestly, like I think they just want everyone to get C-sections, because that's how doctors make like all their money, is when they book these expensive C-sections. So they want us to reproduce, they want us to.
Mhm.
But the thing is like they just want to have more control over it, just like they want to absolutely control everything.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
like they just want to control even the births through C-sections because they make more money, and mom's all doped up and baby's doped up and everyone's happily under their control.
Mhm. And I know this comes up a bit, and I don't want to take away from, any C-sections, that were, whether they were needed or not. And if that is how, your birth went,
Totally.
That is fine. I think the problem in the discussions that we have is that there's so many unnecessary ones.
Exactly.
In that it's pushed that way, and women are really not given all the information of what to expect with a C-section, or they're not given any other options of, it's C-section or, that's it. They're not presented with all the options and choice, that are available. And I think that's the problem. If, there's always a time and a place for interventions, for the medical system, for emergency. And I know sometimes that gets misconstrued in this messaging, and that's not what we're saying. We're like, time and a place, always there, but we need more information to help guide women to make these informed decisions, I think.
The hospital is an amazing place to go to if you truly are experiencing an emergency. Yes, go to the hospital. Don't be stupid. Don't try to be a superhero. You've gotten in a car accident. Okay, you've been in labor for like 5 days. Something's wrong. Go to the hospital. Like, don't be stupid. But where I'm getting at, like what I'm saying is with you, is that people, they just like scheduled a C-section, like they're scheduling to go buy their next Hermes purse.
Absolutely. No, definitely. And that's, yes. It's like, hey, when can we schedule you in? When can we book you? This day doesn't work. That conflicts with, this family gathering, but, we're going on vacation here. Maybe we should get this in before vacation starts. So we'll book you in this day. And
right. And that's like, and if there isn't an emergency, I feel like that's not honoring mom or the baby's timeline, right? Because there's like a natural progression and timeline to things. And at the end of the day, C-section is still very invasive, major abdominal surgery where they're cutting through 7 layers of tissue. And not only that, but there is no rehab. There is no special physio or clinic or something you can go to as you're healing from the C-section. You're just sent home alone, and you're like, if you have the money, hire a postpartum doula, hire help, pray to God grandma or mom is around so they can come and help you in your recovery. Like it's a lot, or husband is skilled enough to multitask all those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like it's a really big decision, and I feel it shouldn't be taken lightly.
No. And I think that's the problem. I think what hospitals are up to, at least 30% C-section rate. I think in Brazil, it's 80%. It's just crazy because I think it's just easy. I don't have to do anything, schedule. I know my baby's going to come. But the other thing around that is you don't realize the physiological repercussions that follow that as well. The bonding with your baby, the healing, your milk production, your ability to breastfeed, it's all connected, and the risk. So I don't know if you saw this going around. Actually, there's 2 things that have come up already, and I was like, okay, this is why we came on today. I'm going to come back to the pain portion of it, because that's been a big conversation lately this past week. So, but there was this video that went around that someone had posted, and it was this woman. She was a doctor, and she was trying to show her son how he was born. He was born through C-section. So she must be a very skilled artist. So she made this abdomen out of Play-Doh.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so she made this abdomen out of Play-Doh, and she got her son involved, and she's like, okay, now we're going to cut through here. Okay, now we have to pull this back. Okay, now we're through the fatty tissue. Okay, now we need to go through this. I don't even, like you said, 7 layers of tissue, right? That you have to do different cuts for. So it was your scalpel for cutting, and then you cut your scissors, and then when you get to the muscle. And I remember as an NICU nurse going to C-sections and watching the different instruments and the movements. And okay, when they get to the muscle, it's literally just their hands ripping apart this area, and then you put the bladder blade to protect the bladder in the one area, and then baby amniotic fluid. We've had a couple babies in the unit that had scalpel marks that needed to see plastic surgery because they got cut during this part of cutting through the amniotic fluid. But yeah, bladders can get nicked. I keep losing the light. Bladders can get nicked, bowels can get nicked. You're literally using your hands to rip through the muscle. And then when I first saw my first C-section, I was surprised at the violence of pushing on the abdomen to the force that was needed. They're like, okay, lower the bed. So they're really above the woman and pushing down to get this baby out. Anyways, I bring that out because bring this up because this video was getting shared like, oh, what a great presentation to show how, it's what happens in C-sections and how it looks or what happens, great explanation. But I was like, oh my gosh, like this video should be used. Sorry, I don't know if it's feedback on my end, but I apologize for that.
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay. It's just, so I was like, this video should be used as like, to make informed consent, because I think we take it for granted about C-sections that it's not, that it is an invasive surgery. And I think people don't realize, because it's like, oh yeah, we'll just schedule you in, no problem. Oh yeah, it's no big deal. You'll be fine. Here, we'll book your baby in this day. But when I watched that video, I was like, oh my gosh, this like needs to be shown to every mother that's considering a C-section.
Birth to them becomes a mechanical event.
Yes.
Right? It's no longer natural or physiological.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like blown away. It's like, that was a good video to like just prepare you. The other thing I wanted to come back to was the pain, especially because you brought up hypnobirthing. So this was brought up about a lot to me. I love Yolanda Clark and everything. She was one of the first I started listening to back in 2020. Just very articulate, just funny. I loved everything she says, but she definitely triggered me the other day. And I've learned over the years that anything that triggers me means I need to look deeper into it. So she posted a video about pain-free birth, that it is possible for everybody. And that if you're not experiencing pain-free birth, it's because you have chosen not to, or chosen not to do the work, or all these things. And after just, 6 weeks ago, having Adley and experiencing a painful birth that I felt in my back through back labor, I was very triggered by this, because I felt I did all the things. I felt I had a good relationship with God. I was praying. I was surrendering everything to him in prayer. I had a really good support team. I, read all the books. I believed in ecstatic, orgasmic birth. I felt prepared.
Yeah.
And then, I had it in my mind what it was going to look like. I had a birth photographer that was going to come in. I had all these things. I was like, it is going to be intense, but I can do hard things. I've done hard things. I've pushed through pain or whatever. And this is not going to be like this. Like I can do it.
Yeah.
And I still did it. And it was amazing. Thank you. I still have really fond, empowered by the experience. Like it was still very a beautiful experience. But I just wonder, like with you being, working in hypnobirth, all the work you do with women, what is your thoughts really around pain? Is pain-free birth possible for everyone? Is it a goal? Should that be something that we should be, trying to achieve? What are your thoughts around the whole pain-free birth?
I think it's something you should be as close as you can to achieve. I don't want to shame your experience, and I don't want to shame anybody who did do their best and was not able to have a pain-free birth, because birth is it's such a specific event for everybody. It's different for everybody. But it just makes me wonder sometimes, like you said, you still had a lot of low back pain. Did you feel did you set up enough support? Did you feel like you had enough support in the moment? Did you have any fears about support moving forward?
No.
Okay. So just birth is just different for everybody. And it's just not that's just something I would question, right? Just because low back pain normally means lack of support in the body, right? Body parts mean different things.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that's just your experience, and that's okay. That's beautiful. That's totally fine. I'm sure, out of all the births that you had so far, how would you rate this one?
Oh, definitely by far my best experience. And that was with feeling everything, where the boys where epidurals, where you're numb. I didn't feel the pushing, and I definitely not. I don't feel any shame. It's just been a very interesting conversation, and some of the things that have come up was should pain-free be something we're trying to achieve? Can pain be looked at differently? Can you feel pain but still enjoy the experience? And then the conversation came up with, everything we do in our lives, we're trying to numb pain. but maybe pain, and we've always equated pain with a negative connotation. Maybe it doesn't have to be negative. Maybe pain can be something positive and beautiful. Maybe even how we feel pain can be changed versus the sensation itself. So
that's what we work on with hypnobirthing, because
okay.
pain is actually all received in the brain. So what I've been able to do, like, you will still feel that pain, but it won't be like a pain of like you stubbed your toe. You'll be able to reprogram your brain and be like, this is a good pain of me being like just raw and cracked open. And I'm just like charging towards what I want. Like something wonderful is coming at the end of this pain. And then it just shifts your perspective. Like you're no longer in a panic. Like, you know, like when you stub your toe really badly and you literally feel it all the way up your spine and you're cringing and you're just like, so much regret that you stubbed your toe, and you're almost like panicking, like this panicking feeling, like, oh, like when is this pain gonna end? Like you shift that into more of like deep breathing, right? Like breathing through the pain and just like understanding that like you're working together with baby and that everything's divine and the body's smart and your body knows what it's doing, baby knows what it's doing. You know, like I'm talking about really good scenarios where everything's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's where, because I from conversations too, when we're like, oh, I don't know if I could handle the pain. I don't know. And you said in your work, that does seem to be the number one, first and foremost thing that comes up going into natural birth. And I just think it is a very interesting conversation that I think we need to kind of, again, reframe and there's not a lot of words. I was talking about this with some of the friends, like there's not a lot of words to describe pain either. You have pain. Okay, well, what else? Like a sharp and aching. You can kind of describe what the pain is, but it's still pain. That's the word. And then you could say, I think Ina May says, interesting sensation that requires all of your attention, but it's almost like we need another word for
like
what that is.
Was your low back pain, like, was that like panicking, stubbing your toe pain, like you want it to stop? Or like, had you done enough work that it was like, this is like, you were able to sit with this pain and breathe through it and you knew something good was coming? Like, how would you describe that pain in your head?
I think it was bad, but I think I knew that I was like safe and it was okay. My husband was there providing counter back pressure the whole time, and that's what helps get through it. I remember just saying, okay, it's temporary in the most intense moments. Okay, it's temporary, and then it would go from a pain, again, just a more intense sensation to something a little bit more bearable. And it's just been conversations that have come up, sharing this with other women, like about their experiences. So I've just been very curious about other experiences, what people have felt or looked at, what it has felt like for other women. But I also think in life we're always trying to numb ourselves. And
it's the go-to, right? It is, obviously. A lot of people aren't happy in general with their lives, so
yeah, and trying to get away from any discomfort or any hard, challenging things. I think that's a lot of like, we want the easy way out. How can we avoid this? But I think through conversations like, well, what if we just, and I think that's the work that you do with hypnobirthing and psychology.
Yeah.
Reframing, like you said, reframing how your brain processes that. And I think that's kind of should be the kind of the goal going through. Okay, how will I receive this? How can I look at this differently? What are these, sensations or experiences going to look like?
That's what I do with every client I come across, because like, it's just easier for me, and it really empowers the family, right? Because then you're taking out that fear. Right? Mm-hmm. No doula wants to show up to a birth where mom hasn't done the inner work, and now it's a 4 or 5 day labor thing at home, and it ends in like a C-section, right? Like that was not her dream birth. And I'm sure no mother wants that either. No family wants that either. So it's just something that I found is really crucial. And like, I think that's something I do a little differently, maybe, than other doulas I've noticed. And I just think it's something that, like, if people aren't doing individually, then they need to hire help to work through that before birth, because, birthing is really something you have to prepare your family for. Like, you have to prepare mother for on all levels, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally, and father as well. Like, the partner needs to step up and he needs to know what's involved, and like, it's his event too. It's not just the mother's event, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
they're very much a part of it. It's their child coming into this world as well. I am curious, and what do you like? So we're talking about this as well about pelvic floor. There seems to be more prolapse and issues
yeah,
like that coming. So I'm hoping to have a pelvic floor therapist come on soon to kind of discuss those issues. But you
yeah,
mentioned the work, and so we were talking about why is it so different now? Like, what did it look like with our ancestors birthing? Okay, I bet they were not having these pelvic floor issues quite as extensively as we are seeing
yeah,
now. And the work, do you think it was more just women passed down the knowledge, like it was just more
yeah,
women centered?
yeah.
Because I feel like we really need to educate ourselves and reach out externally to do this work now in modern day and age. But what did it used to look like?
We have washed down the power of the medicine woman. Like, that has been really washed down, and it's been replaced with the modern woman, who is now the glass ceiling chaser. Is that the word? The always hit, like, they don't want to hit the glass ceiling. They want to burst through it and be just like where men are at. And they've just lost focus, I feel, of everything that is holy and sacred about being in your divine goddess female energy. And women in the past were very much in tune with that. And like, when you were having birth in your small villages, you just call in all the women who ever gave birth before, and they're not doctors, they're not midwives, they just know because they've had 7 kids. So they all come in and they're all helping you, and they're passing on that knowledge. And like, the thing with like the hospital, the increase in hospital births, as I'm sure you have seen, has really isolated the woman and isolated the family. So they're not getting all this medicine knowledge, the wisdom medicine knowledge from the past. They're kind of just getting, Rothschild hand me down, whatever textbook knowledge, which replaced all that for a good reason.
Yeah.
And the whole pelvic floor thing, like, these women, they used to churn butter. Do you know how hard it is to churn butter? That is a
Mhm.
full body core workout. Okay. They used to go and forage for things, like take care of animals on the farm. Like, how many hours that? Oh, am
Mhm.
I still here?
Yeah, you're good. You're back now.
Okay. Not only that, it's really friggin' sad, the level of pedophilia, sexual trauma, um, just all sorts of manipulations that are now happening on children.
Mhm.
So you don't have to wait until you're a grown ass woman to have a weak pelvic floor. You could have already started building a weak pelvic floor from a baby, from a child, based on, if you had sexual abuse, if you lived, even if you didn't have sexual abuse, even if you lived in a very scary household where there was never any stability, your body is constantly tense. Your body does not feel safe. Your fascia is not working the way it should be working. Um, and you have to unwind that. You have to unwind all the knots in your pelvic floor. Pelvic floor therapists are really great for that, if you find one you're very comfortable with, because it does get invasive, but it's necessary work if you want to heal. There's all sorts of videos too on YouTube for pelvic floor healing that you can look up. And once you take out all the knots and kind of relax and reset your fascia, then you can actually start to do like pelvic floor exercises. And you can start to strengthen your pelvic floor in the way that it needs to be prepared for childbirth so that you'll bounce back faster.
Mhm. Yeah, it is really really sad to see, I guess, the decline in our knowledge, physical bodies, and everything we're doing these days. Every convenience that has come in has come with a sacrifice, and I think we're seeing that on all levels now. So I'd say the last 3 years, I think that one of the biggest blessings that's come from that is kind of has like stopped the conveniences and shown us that we need another way. And I think it's pushed a lot of people to get kind of back to how we once were.
We need to go back to the old way.
Yeah. Yes.
And something you might not know, like the pelvic floor is very much tied to your jaw, especially for females. And even when you watch a scary movie, your pelvic floor is tightening. So ladies, like stop watching those scary movies. Like it's just so not worth it. You don't need it. Go put like a rom-com on, something fun and light, you know, or like just don't watch TV at all. Go do something else enjoyable.
Yeah. I remember, I think I came across that, I think through Ina May. I remember thinking how interesting that was, that, yeah, your jaw is very much linked to, yeah, your pelvic floor and your opening. So jaw's clenched, you know, you're going to be clenched down there. You have to open up. And I remember finding that so fascinating in her birth stories, because she's so great at her books of sharing so many stories. And being in the 70s, you know, everything is psychedelic and high and groovy, and yeah, I just love the experience. Oh, we were so high. I just loved like
her books. Like that community must have been so awesome.
It was so great. Like I was like, oh my gosh, can you imagine going and being on the farm? Like,
yeah.
But one of the things that stuck out to me was and the, you know, not kissing, but the smooching, and then they're always smooching their partners. I remember that wording. I just love that. That's what they called it, you know, like, so just I leaned in for a smooch during a wave, and it helped to really loosen things up.
Yeah,
the oxytocin, it loosens your mouth and just, yeah.
Yeah, the same energy that got baby inside you will help baby get out, you know, like have that lovey-dovey touching and romance. And sometimes you just got to back away as a doula and let partners do their thing for a little bit, and then you come back.
Yes. I was surprised because, you know, birth is always shown, like we talked about, scary and horrific and painful, you know, how Hollywood has. And I will admit, I do have like a little bit of an Outlander thing. I like to watch Outlander. And
I love Outlander.
Okay, we're in good company then. But I was really shocked in the one scene where she was about to give birth. Her husband wasn't there, and, you know, I think she was kind of very uncomfortable and, you know, stressed, and, you know, she wanted her husband there. He showed up. He was from France. And
I know that scene. I know that scene. Okay.
And so I just thought it was so interesting. He was like, "Oh, this is what happened in the brothels in France, in the brothels, nipple stimulation." So he started to help his partner with, you know, nipple stimulation, and I think they ended up having sex, but then she had her baby. But I was like, very interesting that they even showed that on the show, that they talked about nipple stimulation helping the birth. Yeah, and that they showed even them having sex, and then, well, they didn't show them having sex, but that was implied. And then she was able to birth the baby.
Yeah. I was like, but that's Hollywood, right? They just love dropping secrets in our face and being like, oh, it's just make-believe television. Like, you don't need to believe this. Meanwhile, it's like the full-blown truth.
I thought we were going to be good. Baby girl was almost asleep during the whole thing, but we'll see if I can get her back down. I thought that was very interesting. Like you said, they do kind of share little snippets of truth here and there. You mentioned something earlier that I wanted to come back to too, about I just love that, and you're going to inspire me, because this is kind of like what I'm hoping to bring together, being, you know, former NICU nurse, I went back to school for holistic nutrition, and my focus was around babies and children. That's what I love, the nutrition aspect for that age. And then now getting into birth work, I'm hoping to, bring it all together much like you have. But it is very important to start with the nutrition side. To prepare your body. And I think that's another thing that we probably take for granted. How often would you see clients come to you for probably fertility work or to prepare their bodies for pregnancy?
That's the number one place you really should start, is on the nutrition level. It's, we're up against, the level of miscarriages have significantly gone up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot going on out there. It's really sad to say, it breaks my heart that women are struggling as hard as they are now to be fertile. But it's not only the woman, nutrition comes from men.
Mm-hmm.
Men actually replenish their sperm something like every 24 to 72 hours. They fully replenish all their sperm. So what that men is eating in a shorter cycle actually has a higher rate of either increasing fertility or decreasing fertility, right? What he's eating and how many EMF things he's around, is he sitting with the laptop on his nuts for, all day long? That's not going to help. Or is he smoking too much marijuana? Because that also slows down semen, studies have shown. With females, it's a little harder, right? Because we're born with all our eggs. And if you can clean them out, you can do some really good DNA genetic work, but it takes longer for women. So I always say the number one thing women have to do is they have to get off birth control.
Mm-hmm.
I think as soon as possible, at least a few years in advance. Because that really messes up the whole system. And I have seen women who have dealt with long-term complications from being on birth control just for 5 or 10 years. They're dealing with long-term complications now. So that is a lot. I see that a lot. I was doing research and I discovered that about something like 80% of the miscarriages are actually based on the quality of the male sperm. It's not as high as we originally thought it to be on the female. So I love to put most of the onus back on men, right? I mean, it takes two to tango, but people forget the men. I'm like, guys, get on a liver cleanse, clean up your diet, think positive, be a happy guy, do the inner work. Because literally, we are energy, right? So if you don't clean up yourself, all around from every aspect, you are passing that into your DNA, into your genes, and your children can pick up even energetic traits, not only physical DNA traits. They will pick up energetic traits as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I really implore men to take on that challenge. It's really funny because when most couples come on a consultation with me, the men's just kind of in the background, just listening. And then I'm just like, hey, you come closer. You're a part of this. Listen, I want you to do this, 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 and this. And then they get all perked up and they kind of get excited. They're like, oh, I'm involved too.
Yes. couldn't be here without you. Very much involved.
Yeah, and I feel even that, they even cut that out in the very Western medical aspect of things. It's always oh, the male just drops the female off at the appointment, he goes for a cigarette or go gets a coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and it's guys, this is the Holy Trinity. You are the sacred family. You are God here on earth. That is your representation. Live up to that a little bit. Be proud, hold onus, protect your family. Don't just leave your wife in there and the baby with the doctor and leave. You don't know what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm. And is that how that used to be the culture? All the men waiting in the waiting room, with the cigars or whatever they had, just waiting for, baby to be born, and then they come in. It just, Yeah, no, it's very much a sacred partnership that needs to be fulfilled together. And it was great. Last week, I had two fathers come on, and just listening to them speak about their experience with, natural birth and the home birth, and being there for their wives, and being very much a part of it, and the research. They were just glowing. And they're just so proud of the opportunity to be involved and to be there and to be part of the experience. And it was just very beautiful, because I think often I think the men forget that they're involved until they're reminded, like you do. But I think we forget how much, it impacts the men as well, like, and how very much through the nutrition, the work, the whatever they need to do. It's it involves both.
They get lost. Men, I kind of feel bad for them, because how society has evolved is that the modern woman is now in charge of holding all the sacred masculine energy and all the sacred feminine energy, right? That's the modern woman that they have created. That's what we've been taught in schools, in society, social media. So then the guy comes along, and we're already struggling to hold both ends. There's not a lot of room for them. And then when we get into these relationships, it's rocky, right? Because the female was trained to hold that alpha energy. But meanwhile, when you have a strong man come in and he's trying to take that alpha energy from you, you're supposed to let him, in the sense where it's what forms a healthy relationship. The alpha stays in his alpha, and he takes on all the alpha duties, and the female stays in her female creative roles, and she takes on all those duties, right? Like nurturing, creativity, being loving, being kind. But like, there's strength in that. There's power in that. Like, don't think you're going to be weak giving away your alpha. And so, like, these men come along, and, they're kind of lost. And we've really seen that, especially with the soy boys, right? They're infiltrating the men with these crap foods, these crap products, and the men just become compliant to having their alpha taken away from them. And it's kind of like, where are all the strong men? Because we need them now more than ever.
Absolutely. And like how you said, how they become compliant of, kind of relinquishing, the alpha, and then they get lost into like, well, what is my role? Where do I belong? What do I do? And then, then you end up with, emotionally kind of, weaker men in this area of just like lost and confused and unfulfilled, because they're not able to fulfill the role that, they are meant to be in. And I love the way you describe that, because I feel you described it very beautifully and non-controversial. This conversation has come up amongst girlfriends and I. Just some of us, are Christian, some are not, and so the biggest question, there's a word, right, in biblical sense, and it's like surrender to the man. And I think that word can be very difficult for strong women to understand what that means. And I think you just described it so well. Like, it is, letting go and surrendering to, this man that is in your household, to, be in this alpha position, to, be strong and hold things together. And that allows you to be actually stronger. And able to be, more in yourself and who you are, because you as a woman are not trying to be all these things where you're exhausted and falling apart. You can't do it. You just can't. I have tried many times. I have been, the breadwinner, full-time, working all the things. And then you become a mom and you're like, well, I'm still going to work full-time, plus start a business, plus go to school, plus raise a kid. And no, it is not. And then hold that. What's that? Sorry.
That's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that you can do whatever men can do and more. But you're damaging yourself. You're damaging your identity, and you're damaging your partner and your family.
And by lifting them up, by being in that, able to, and I'm going to use this word because I know it is a bit controversial, but it's just because it's come up conversation, like by surrendering, because that's how I felt too. Like I felt I had to surrender myself to God in the birthing process. I'm just going to surrender myself to this process. When you surrender yourself to your husband, they come back and they they adore you, as you know they should, and you know hopefully did when you got married, but that's the cycle. They also adore you and lift you up and honor you as well, so it becomes this beautiful cyclical I
Yeah.
can't say words lately.
Cyclical.
Yeah, thanks. Of image, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'll let you kind of, I'll get her settled.
it's
Yeah.
okay. Poor baby. It's okay. She's getting used to being an embodiment in this lifetime. She'll figure it out. You'll be a good mama with her. Um, yeah, it's not like, I know people like freak out because they're like, oh, surrender, and then someone else has control over you. But if you have an alpha male who is coming forth and he's trying to take charge of things, the very fact that he's trying to take charge of things shows that he has initiation and motivation, and that he loves you and he cares for you. If you are with a man who is not trying to take charge of things and not trying to provide or motivated, then I would be worried, because to me that's not healthy. I don't think God makes mistakes. I think God puts us in the bodies that we are in for a very good reason. And female bodies have a very specific energetic signature to them. And that's all about the divine female. And that's really easy to look up. So many people right now are on like a whole high, like there's all these Instagram pages where they go on and on about the goddess divine female and the sacred strong alpha. And you can read up about that. There's so much stuff about that. But there's a specific energetic signature that goes to the female, and it also goes to the male. And we were literally built for the roles that we've been put in, like literally built for them. And if you research the past, like that's where all the success in the families have come from, is they have stayed in their roles. They have stayed in their sacred roles, and they did not try to deviate. And that's not to say like don't follow your dreams. If your dreams are, if you want to be like a big badass bitch boss, like, you know, go for it. Like, why not? Why not? But like, just don't trample on your partner. Don't trample on your sacred alpha who's there and he's also trying to provide for you and motivated and do things for you. Like, there's a time and a place for everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. Some of my favorite businesses in my local town, I was thinking of this, are run by women. And I do think it is really amazing to see them in this role, like you said. But it's, yeah, finding that partnership. It's just something, I think, because I was forced out of my career, and I don't think I would have done it without, you know, the bridge that burned behind me. But it just made me think a lot about just everything, just where we are in this world, what society has told us to be, how to act, you know, all the roles and things. So it's just, it is an interesting conversation, and one that I've been reflecting on a lot lately as myself, as I find myself in this new role. Yeah.
Yeah, like it takes practice to fall back into those roles, right? Because sometimes, you know, and like no one's perfect, okay? So sometimes your sacred alpha will have a streak where he's just really friggin' out of it and he can't provide. And like that's okay. That's okay. That's what partnership is about. There's a balance, right? You have to step in, you have to carry things for a little while for him, and he'll bounce back. And vice versa, right? Like you'll go out of, like you just gave birth. I'm sure there's tons of things that your partner is covering right now in order to help you, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it goes back and forth. And that's like a healthy relationship, is that there's just like a seamless flow. Like no one's keeping track, and it's just ebless. Like it's just give and take, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I feel very grateful living in that for this moment right now, with helping with, you know, the dinner and the kids, and once they get home, yeah, I'm like, okay, because by 4 or 5, after being home with just the 3 of us all day, I'm like, I'm tapped out, I'm done.
Yeah.
Here you go. I was thinking, you know, having this conversation, all the other things woven together, I was like, oh, for this Taking Back Birth show, that was a lot of different topics, but I think it's interesting because it really does all come together, and it is very important for the birth you're going to experience as well. All all these things matter, your nutrition, both of you, your environment in your house, your relationship that you have, the support that, you have, it's all, your mindset. And I think that comes a lot with, you mentioned the work that's involved. And it is a lot of deep work leading into the process. So I feel all these topics, you think, oh, taking back birth, we're just going to talk all, things birth, the process at home, but all these aspects are vitally important to get you to that end birth that you want.
Yeah, I'm like a super analyzer. I'm a Virgo, so I've analyzed the shit out of this and everything involved in giving birth.
So you must notice, like, throughout, how long have you been doing this work?
Birth work specifically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Only since 2020.
Okay.
But I've had a holistic background probably since 2013 was the last time I ever took any kind of inoculations. So that was really eye-opening to go down that road, because I myself was injured pretty severely, and that's what led me to my healing journey. Is I had to heal myself from that inoculation injury, because no one else would take me seriously. No one else would help. But in going down that path, I discovered alternative medicine and how strong it is. And it definitely helps that I'm a nurse, right? And I'm sure you've noticed that too. Like, just everything that, like, it's such a bonus to be a nurse, because I'm sure you notice, like, everything that the doula chats are talking about, like, you're just like right on top of it, and you're like, oh, that would make sense why that would happen. Oh, okay, she's constipated, she needs this. And like, you understand the lymphatic system and all the body systems and breastfeeding and everything. Like, it gives you one up. And not only that, I honestly think, and I might be biased, but nurses are a special breed. Like, it doesn't, not anybody can just be a nurse. Like, it's a really sacred and taxing and giving profession to be in.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, the Western system doesn't give nurses enough onus for everything that they do and that they're capable of. And just because so many nurses are so smart, during this collapse the last couple of years, I've seen so many nurses just run off and do their own thing with so much success. Like, it's friggin' amazing.
Yeah. No, it is, because once a nurse, always a nurse. And you said this right at the very beginning, you went into nursing to help people. And I think that was one of the cracks that we felt and noticed in the system, was we weren't really helping people the way we wanted to. And
it was too late. They were already in the hospital bed, or we were traumatizing them or making it worse.
Yes. And so it wasn't quite the work we wanted. So now, stepping back, you've become the holistic nurse doula, so you get to actually help people. And I found myself, before, when I was doing nutrition work with babies and kids, I was like, oh, I get to educate them before they end up in this place. I got to educate them before they have to come to these decisions. And so I found, stepping out of the system, I was way more beneficial than within. And I think, we've talked about this a lot with, the group we're in, is that you can't change the system from within. And, I think we are kind of naive. I'm sure there was a time where I did think that was possible. But I think the reality is it's not. And what needs to be done is creating a whole other option and choice. And I'm so thankful for people like you, and the others that I've been meeting in this birth world the last few years, because it is creating something new, and we finally are showing women and mothers and partners and people the other side of it, because that's the biggest thing. My takeaway was that I didn't know any different. And so when I made my first choices for my boys, because that was all I knew, and I was told not to look at anything else, like this was the way. And when that door opened, and I was like, what is that? What's going on? And I looked down into, like, the natural world, when I finally took off, that the veil of, you know, like where I was pushing away from knowing. I was like, okay, I'm ready. Door opened. What's going on? I felt robbed of an experience. And I don't regret my births. I don't, you know, look at them with any remorse or shame or anything, because that's what I knew at that time, and that was the decisions I made with what I knew. But I did just feel robbed of choice, and I think that's the biggest thing that we can bring now by having these conversations and opening up, you know, to different audiences, is just letting them know that there is choice, and I think that's the most important.
Knowledge is power, and preventative medicine is actually everything.
Mm-hmm.
And just a side note, because now I'm thinking about, you said you had back pain. I'm actually wondered if you even just had some physical trauma from the epidurals in your low back, because cells hold on to memory, right? You have cell memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder, because like you received the epidurals during birth, during your labor, and I wonder if going into labor like maybe re-triggered some of that cellular energy, like that pain that maybe just on a cellular level you were still holding on to, and you maybe had no idea. And maybe that's why it hurt so much.
I don't know. It's very interesting. That's why I knew that post triggered me for a reason, because it meant I'm supposed to look into something. So,
Yeah. So maybe just use some like essential oils or like something that'll like penetrate deep into like the tissues in your low back to try to like heal that. Or you could even do like energy healing, like Reiki sessions on your low back.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're planning on having any more kids, but like
I
maybe
don't
that
know
pain,
either.
maybe that pain was there for a reason, to show you that there's something unresolved still there.
I definitely feel that was part of the conversation too. And when this post came up and we're all dissecting it, pain is definitely there for a reason.
Yeah.
Whether it's to look into something else, whether it's to, you know, show you something's wrong. It could be that too. But it's definitely, pain is always there for us to learn from, I feel.
Yeah.
And that's why we should never numb it, or, you know, suppress it. We need to feel it, lean into it, and find the meaning behind it, what it's trying to tell us, because our bodies are always speaking to us.
Yeah, pain is not always something to be so afraid of. Like pain can be very telling. Yeah, you're right. Totally.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining today. I think Adley, want to say hi now? You did pretty good there, baby girl. Kind of slept a little bit. And nurse, I'm always scared I'm gonna show. Oh no, you're shy. That's okay. You don't have to.
Oh,
Yeah. But
hi,
well, yeah. But
oh
well,
God, she's watching.
yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining me today and having these conversations. And I look forward to having more and getting to know you more. So, yeah, thank you very much. Anything else you want to finish with as we close?
I think you are doing an amazing job as an awakened mother in this new world that we're undergoing. I think your children are very fortunate to have you. And I think you did an amazing job with your birth. I'm really proud of you.
Thanks. I'm really proud of myself. Yeah, you too. You did a great job too. Yeah.
Yeah, and Adley too. Adley did a great job too,
Yeah.
coming out of that canal. She
Yeah,
was working with you.
that was a lot of work. I said that to her. I said, we did this. And I said, you know, when I was talking to her in one of the transitions, I was like, okay, you're doing a great job. I'm ready. We're all ready to meet you. We're so excited to welcome you into our family. We're ready. Yeah. Yeah.
And she came rushing out. She was like, okay, guys, I'm coming.
There you go. Okay. All right. You say goodbye. All right. Well, thank you so much. And
Yes,
we'll
thank
talk
you.
again soon. And yeah, we'll see. Oh, where can people find you? We'll end with that.
Where can people find me?
Yeah.
What do you normally give out?
Instagram, website, or something if people want to look into your services.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me give my Instagram. Hold on a second. Let me open up my Instagram handle. I think it's just, oops. Yeah, so my Instagram handle is just nurse_holistic_love.
Okay, perfect.
So Nurse Holistic Love, that's my Instagram, and that's a good enough place for people to reach me there. It's public. I'm not afraid to speak out, so enjoy my content.
Sounds good. All right, thank you so much. And I'll post it in the little notes. All right.
Okay, thanks for this opportunity. Bye, guys.
Bye.